Hazen Audel, I gotta say, man, you have been a blessing in my life, and you're definitely someone who, is putting the happy in their hustle. You're the host, as I mentioned, of National Geographic's hit show on Disney Plus, Primal Survivor. You're a biologist, an artist, a craftsman, and just a great all-around dude. And he's going to talk to us today about how we can really connect with nature deeper and as well protect it.
Do you want blissful balance in your personal and professional life? Great. What's up, guys? My name is Kerry Jack, and I want to help you happy hustle a life you love, one full of passion, purpose, and positive impact. I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur, a professional model / actor, a digital marketing specialist, a podcast host, author, a biohacker, an eco warrior, a martial artist, a hippie cowboy, and a humanitarian. My goal is to educate, inspire, and entertain you to live a life of passion, purpose, and positive impact. It is time to happy hustle your dream reality.
And Hazen, you could take it where you'd like to go. We got about 20 minutes, and then we'll do some Q&A. So the floor is yours, my man.
Okay, yeah. I'll leave it to you to go get the hook out if I start just talking your guys' ears off.
Will do.
You're talking to somebody, you're talking, we're all talking in a category that, of course, I'm passionate about. I didn't necessarily know that it was a passion of mine because that was just who I was. And I think for all of us, we all started out that way. We all went outside, and the first bug we saw, we were curious about what it was. And then for us who kind of knew that there were more bugs to be found under a brick or a rock, that's what we did all of our childhood. And some way, somehow in our society, we stopped doing that. But that's society telling us, that's society persuading us. We all have a natural propensity to listen, observe, be in the presence of nature. And so for me, maybe I just wasn't listening to all the social cues that were out there, and I just kept staying what I say is human. I kept my inner child, and I still have, I think, at my age, I still go out into the jungle, out into the woods, any natural place, and I still carry that inner child with me. So I love all of the alignments that you have developed, Carrie, are things that some of them are my strengths. Some of them are places that I need to recognize that I need to implement more in my life. And then you've amassed a group where I can be shown how to do that. That's what I love about being with you guys. And, I kind of see myself as being a little bit different than all of you. And that's a great thing because it's a great thing. But as far as connection with nature, you recognized it with me, and you found it. You found a power tool that needs to be shown the daylight with you guys. So thank you for seeing that in me. When you talk about all these alignments that are what you view as real keys to a healthy life and promote longevity and success, nature is always going to be there for us. It always was for us. If you want to look back at humanoids, when we've been around on the planet for truly millions of years, and Homo sapiens for close to 500,000 years, I'm close to the epicenter of the where the first humans were, and those people are still walking there, the sand bushmen, and then we have diverged and have been so successful at living off of the earth that we've been able to go everywhere on earth and have different skin colors, different heights, different physical abilities to be able to essentially, kind of the way I look at it, as being the kings of the kings of nature. And I think if we refer to the Bible, a lot of people say that we are some people say we're the caretakers or whatever, and people want to look at that in different ways. But the way I look at it is that we are animals that have been able to we're different than other animals in that we have a sense about us, and we can read and we can predict things about the nature. There's no other animal walking on earth that has been able to do it like we have. And because of that, yeah, like I said, we've been able to go everywhere in the world. It's in our evolution to have this connection with nature, to be able to read it. And it does stem from birth. We come out of the womb and we just start gazing at the trees, and we start looking at bugs, and we start doing that. And we are naturally born learners. And so every day, if we go outside, no matter how boring a forest you live, there's things to be learning about and perfecting in your entire life. So my show with Primal Survivor, I'm with some of the most inspirational people in the world, because I recognize that they know things that you can't get in a textbook. You can't see it on TV. You have to be taught by your elders, by those people that are they themselves spending a lifetime perfecting.
Uh-oh. Did we lose you, Hazen? All right. Well, he is in Africa, and he's filming another episode of the show, so that might be the issue.
Andy. And
Hopefully.
it makes us love nature. But now we kind of live in a society where we think that we've somehow, for some reason, we're better than nature, or we've become more developed, more sophisticated than nature, which is a bunch of malarkey. And you can see what it's done to us, especially in the Western world, where they have the least amount of access to our natural resources, our natural environment. We're suffering from depression. We're on the highest medications and things like that because we're lonely. And what we need to realize is that we can have a connection with nature, and that is in itself a relationship. And you can be learning from it, and constantly be learning from it, inspiring it, and being inspired by it. And there are things that, we always, what happens when we don't, we're like a collie or an Australian shepherd. If our brains are not occupied, we get ourselves in trouble. I mean, I think the last speaker was talking about that. Our brains are our biggest enemies. We start to construct problems that aren't there if we aren't becoming mentally stimulated. And nature, once you start to know, and again, like what the last speaker said, the more we know, the more we realize we don't know. And once you start developing a relationship with nature and awareness with nature, it just begins with just starting to learn names of trees. And then it goes from learning not just the names of trees, but what are those trees for? And then you just start to kind of see them. And if you have a routine drive to work, and you start to know that this planet doesn't just have pine trees and maple trees, it has about 40 different kinds of trees that are on your drive to work. You start to know the names, you start to recognize them as individuals, and it sounds corny, but you start to have a relationship with them because you're paying attention to those individuals through the seasons. And that's what we're meant to be doing as humans, having an awareness, because our society, I really truly believe, we're kind of being trained to be consumers. And if we're not being aware of our surroundings, knowing where our resources are coming from, knowing that we can be resourceful, knowing that all the things that nature can teach us, if we don't have that, we're being trained as consumers, which is basically like you're just being naive consumers in the zombie cul-de-sac, and us humans have an active brain, and we need to be thinking and having relationships with everything and having that awareness all around us. And you're going to constantly be inspired by nature. But once you start to have that relationship, your awareness is keen and sharp, and that awareness will go into all these other alignments that you're talking about.
I love that, man.
Phew.
Yeah. So one of the things you said was, just learning to pay attention to the trees on your commute or in your front yard, the different species of shrubbery, right? That is such a powerful takeaway for me, because again, what you pay attention to, your focus goes, and you become more aware of this, abundant life outside of ourselves. What would you say
Mhm.
to recommend as like a first step? Is there a book, or is there a movie, or is there a podcast, or is there something, that you've done to study, let's just say trees specifically?
Well, I think, I know that there's some people listening here
Hmm.
and they'll be like, hell no, I hate yard work. I don't want to plant anything in my yard. I get that. I get that because that's how you were raised. You don't understand the language yet. But then you can kind of, hopefully you have exposure to people that are passionate about gardening, whether there's some lady down the street, whether I think we can kind of, a lot of us can hearken to our grandparents where they had gardens out of necessity, and they knew how to can, they knew all these sort of skills that don't seem all that necessary today. Believe it or not, they're incredibly necessary. Like I said, they're part of our DNA to not only know nature and be out and walk in the woods and hunt and fish and know where our food comes from, but also know how to garden and do it. That's still another connection with nature. And if you know people that are passionate about gardening and you are not, I think you can recognize that you have something or you're lacking something. But we all have that capacity. We just need to have that magic moment where somebody exposes us to it. Um, yeah, I think a big thing is just try to access that inner child. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of times I know when I was a kid, what resonated with me was seeing nature shows. I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to watch. But if we've been trained by society to go see what's on Kardashians is more fun to watch than, like, we've already kind of trained ourselves that if there's anything nature oriented on TV, it's going to be totally boring. Open your mind and get sucked in. And that's just sort of a beginning. But just going outside and just spending the time, I think we know the meditative powers and the healing powers of just walking and getting away from it all and just going outside. I really don't care that somebody knows all the names of plants, but once you start, or the names of trees, I don't care. But once you start walking the same trail outside and you start to recognize those different trees, you're starting to know the tree. It doesn't have to be the name. And pretty soon you're starting to sharpen your awareness of things. So that can happen naturally like that. But once you start doing, it's like positioning yourself and you hang out with the people that you want to be more like. There are people that are going to want to go on hikes with you that are going to be able to start to have those conversations with you. And then you guys might be nerdy enough to start getting some books and go, I've always recognized that tree. It's not rocket science to go open up a book and look at a picture that's the same picture as the tree that you're looking at and say, oh wow, that's that. And then it just starts from there. And boy, you can go down a crazy, amazing, very fruitful rabbit hole of opportunity. And that's my life. Thank God. It's been you start to you affiliate with all these other people that are fascinated about all these niche things. You start to get into the Audubon Society people, and then you get the Audubon Society people that are that much weirder, and they're all into mushrooms, and it's like lifetimes of lifetimes about things to get into. And then I know you, Carrie, are a very intentional father. Having that's free. It's like sex. It's fun and free. You go outside and you can take them and do anything. You don't need to know the names. My dad took me out. He took every August off he knew that I love nature. I love catching snakes. I love doing all this stuff. He didn't know shit about fishing. He spent all August fishing with me. Okay. It was just, he wanted me to be out there. And that was our connection that we had at that time. And we made lifelong memories, but these are things that we all can do, especially when we're in that stage of life where we're dedicated towards raising our little ones.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I love this talk, man. This is, just connecting with nature in whatever way calls to you, I think is just a big takeaway. But access that inner child and see what comes up for you. A couple questions, Hazen. I do want to respect your time because I know it's late, and you
I'm all
got.
good. Took multiple power naps. It's all good.
Okay, fair. But anyway, man, this has been phenomenal. A question. It says, "Hey, Hazen, barefoot boy here. Haha. What would you say is the most crucial thing to know or have in your arsenal from the experience to become someone like yourself?"
I think a big thing is just being comfortable in the outdoors.
Hmm.
I don't have any sort of superpowers about being outside and being a survivor. I've learned from the best. The things that people teach me, I resonate with, so I pay attention. But the biggest thing is I'm just comfortable in the outdoors. And in that, when there's sunny days, and of course, you know that there's days that are miserable, I've really conditioned myself to where the bad, miserable days, I know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and I can still enjoy myself. And you want to refine that. You want to refine that conditioning to where, yeah, you can interact with the environment and you can use those skills to hunt, to fish, to garden, to gather, to go mushrooming, to go forage. All that stuff is awesome for us. But it starts with just being familiar with the outside.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Apologies for interrupting your programming. But I have to tell you, the best investment you can make in yourself is one in which helps you acquire skills. You've probably heard people talk about, oh, just invest in yourself and you'll be successful. Yes, that's true to a degree, but you have to invest in skills that will ultimately help you achieve your desired results. And I think one of the best skills one can possess, be it an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur, is the sales sword. Really knowing how to sell, utilizing pressure free persuasion, which will make you more money and more impact. Now, if you want to know how to sell more efficiently and effectively, I just launched a sales course called The Proven Roadmap Process to Selling Millions of Dollars and helping you to increase your conversions guaranteed. And you can get access to this new sales course that The Happy Hustle is launching at thehappyhustle.com/sales. And if you act fast, you'll get it at the lowest price it'll ever be available because we are launching it and we want to gain amazing testimonials and social proof to further share this knowledge. So if you act fast, you can get it at the lowest price it'll ever be. That's at thehappyhustle.com/sales. Now let's get back to this episode.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just getting outside, I think, is step numero uno, right? Just like away from our devices and away from all the noise of society and just in the quiet of nature is so powerful. Another
It
question,
is.
can we come on an adventure with you? Would love to take my kids and have them see your excitement for nature, hoping to spark that in them. Where can people go to come on an adventure with you?
Well, right now, I'm getting myself organized and I have a website. It's real easy to remember. It's myname.com, hazenaudel.com. And we're doing a series of adventures all this summer. So look up hazenaudel.com/adventures. And we've already done some courses in Hawaii, Florida. We're going to do some in Colorado. We're doing a whole bunch of stuff in the deep mountains in the sawtooths of Idaho. It is kind of Carrie Jack country. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
And then this winter, because not as many people want to go snow camping, I think we're going to actually have some jungle trips in store. So make sure you check those out. So jungle fishing, looking at monkeys. And then the thing about, I'm an educator, right? Like no matter what, like I want to share my passions. Having a television program, pinnacle of what I get to do. I get to talk with people all over, millions of people, all different kinds of languages, and they're picking up what I'm laying down. But doing it hands-on with me or with other people, that's my life's passion, my life's mission. So, and I just want to say again, the things I know it's not a superpower. We can all start from ground zero. We just start going outside, and open up your mind to going, whoa, you know, I never really saw a tree in that way. Whoa, it's actually blooming. It starts as that. And then start looking at, you know, as a teacher, I was a formal teacher, biology teacher, and I would do things that other science teachers wouldn't. I'd be teaching them 50 birds that live in their hometown. It sounds ridiculous, but it's a seed, because these football players that would go and they live in the routine, like we're all kind of being seduced to live in this routine, being, like I said, zombies in this consumer cul-de-sac.
Yes.
We don't have to interact with nature because we think we can go in the house, we go into our air-conditioned house, we go into our air-conditioned garage, we go into our air-conditioned car, we drive to the work, and that's our life. And then pretty soon our hobbies, our garage has nothing but a clean car in it. It doesn't have anything to indicate your hobbies. You start to become the most boring person in the world, and your hobby is going to the sports bar. But nature is everywhere. You got to get outside, and it opens your mind. And I guess what am I getting at? What I'm saying is it's all there at our resource. And it starts with just like you start to listen to birds in the morning, and you start to have that be a familiarity. It starts to become something like a comfort thing, and it's good for your emotional well-being. It's good for all these things. And pretty soon, like I said, you start to develop this language with nature that's always there. And pretty soon it does become your medicine cabinet, just the presence there.
Yeah, man, that's so true. Nature is definitely medicine. And, you know, someone asked, is there any ways to get connected to nature if we live in the city?
Yes. Yeah, there's still stuff. And I know it's more difficult. It's the reason why I don't live in the city. And it's the reason why I feel sorry for a lot of people, because there's a lot of amazingly talented people that are so driven, getting shit done. But I think a lot of them are suffering.
Yeah.
And they're missing there's all these things that, you know, being with a hustler like you, a lot of people have the agenda of like, okay, how can I make more money? But if you're not grounded and have passions and have interests, no, there ain't no amount of money in the world that's going to make you feel grounded and whole.
Yeah.
True. And so you really need to force yourself in it. And the forcing is like everything. You start to adapt so incredibly rapidly because, like I said, it's part of all of our DNA to do so. So if you're out in the city, it can be things like doing silly things like starting a little garden, like checking out dirt and putting some seeds in it and watching it grow and care for it. Having a little aquarium is awesome. Like nobody ever thought that they'd like have a relationship with an angelfish, but like just having that and watching it is kind of mesmerizing. Yeah. And again, it's getting back to your childhood wonder. And you can really, I know so many people that have been, they never felt like they had any relationship with nature, and then somehow they saw some Instagram or Pinterest thing where they started making an aquarium, and it changed their lives. Now they're scuba diving all over the world and wanting to learn, and they realize, man, I've been living my life a lie. That was my midlife crisis. Yeah. And it was so easy because it was all there. I wish I could have done things over, and it was just all there. So yeah.
Wow. I love that, man. Yeah. A simple aquarium or a garden, you know, just having that connection to nature, man, it can bring so much joy in your life. Another question, what is the biggest killer to your inner child that you've somehow been able to keep alive and thriving? And maybe you're answering that, you know, now. But yeah, what do you think is the biggest killer to your inner child, and how have you been able to keep it alive?
The biggest killer to my inner child has been the stresses of modern day life. Feeling like time is money. And I have to do so many things. I have to balance so many things. And I think we can easily get seduced into, I see it because I live my life in permanent culture shock. I go filming. I'm all of a sudden living for 3 months without electricity. I'm learning languages. My food comes from the river, comes from that cow. Like, that's my life. Yeah. Okay. And initially it might have been uncomfortable, but then it was like, this is how shit gets done. And then you go back home and then you're like, wait, what? Where are all these fluorescent lights coming from? This is where our food comes from? What the hell? This costs money? Oh my God. And then, but then we start to become, we're all such malleable, impressionable animals that I myself recognize that I become seduced by modern society. Like, my dad builds hot rods. I start to get into hot rods and fancy cars and shit that costs money, and feeling like I'm inadequate because of all these other people that are having all these things that I don't. And I have to start traveling again to get my reality check and go, all that shit is mimetic desires. Like, I just want what they want because they give, for some reason, that they're a human because they have that 9/11 or something. I am like that. I'm a culprit of that. But then when I take a couple steps back and I go, oh yeah, my inner child, where I'm most happy, where I'm most content. Yeah, it's not the it's not it's not quantitative learning. It's qualitative learning. I'm just out. I can't say I'm making this much money when I'm outside learning and being basic, but learning deeply, like being, again, resourceful, knowing where my shit comes from, having that relationship. Maybe it's basic, but it's like, it makes me stronger in the end. It makes me more resilient in the end because I've been there. It's like, I don't need all that shit in my life. And I know where my shit comes from and I know how to get it. And
that's such a great point. I just want to, again, echo, knowing where your food comes from, having that connection, you can start there. And showing your family, hey, it doesn't, like, meat just doesn't get to the grocery store. Like, that's like, I feel like it's such a disconnect. And when you hunt for your food and really you understand that the circle of life at play, it's powerful. And I do want to just ask one question personally, and then we'll let you go, man, because I want to honor everyone's time, and especially yours. I know, you're doing this on very little sleep and definitely across the world. What can people do to protect nature? Like, I feel like right now there's deforestation at rapid rates. There's drilling and oil pipelines. There's, illegal fishing running rampant. There's pollution and toxins in our air.
I think that's what we need to, where you hold people accountable. That's where we really need to. It should be talked about in church. It should be talked about, all these things, because we think that we can be far removed from this earth. We need all of it. It's just coming from some other source that we have no idea. We only know it is how much it costs. But the more you know about something, the more you care about it. And the problem right now is nobody knows anything about nature. It's not making airtime anymore. It's not part of the conversation. It's not like where our grandparents were hunting or canning or growing vegetables. That stuff's not there anymore. So we're zombies. But we weren't put on this earth to be zombies. We're put on this earth to be caretakers, to be interacting with the environment. And when we start understanding it, we feel like it's a priority. I think a lot of people, when they say you're a true outdoorsman, we kind of give these accolades to these maybe superheroes. They're dressed up in camo and they're all built to high hell, and they got some like elk head on the back of their head. That's one kind of nature lover. A lot of people will think that they don't love nature, but you can just be out there with a pair of binoculars and look at birds, or be a gardener or whatever. But what I'm saying is that people that are interacting, and like, if they're gardening and that's where their food comes from, they want their soil to not have chemicals. You look at where you and I are from, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Pacific Northwest. If we didn't have our hunting culture, whether you like it or not, because I myself am very critical of a lot of different kinds of hunting, but I also recognize that if we didn't have that culture, all of our woods would be turned into parking lots. And the more parking lots we have, the faster we're going to die. And it's outside of it's outside of our control. The control that we have is interacting with it, and then for our own agenda, knowing that we need to preserve it. You go look at duck hunters, you go look at organizations like Ducks Unlimited. We have more wetlands now than we've had in the last 100 years because we have people interacting with nature, eating ducks, eating geese. And for me, I can go hunting and I don't care about killing anything. I'm out there and knowing that this place needs to be preserved. This is my yard. And I'm not going to have it turned into a parking lot. So we all need to start thinking about that, because when we get rid of our wetlands, when we get rid of all these things, look at like when Florida and Tennessee and all that shit floods. Well, that's only in our generation. Our generation is what effed up so many things and are creating all this drought, all these other things, because we're getting away from that knowledge of nature.
Yeah, man.
And we need that knowledge to care about it.
Yeah, it's so well said. Interacting more with nature, and if you do nothing else but interact more with nature, and then figure out what about nature you love, and then for your own selfish gain, help protect that piece of nature, right? Like you said, with duck hunters who interact with the wetlands.
Unfortunately, it comes down to, who is the most selfish, and if you can direct that selfishness into protecting nature, it's going to help us all.
Yeah, dude, so true. Yeah, and Lori said there's a difference between killing for a trophy or just to kill, and then killing for survival or to eat. And I think that is I'm not a fan of trophy hunting whatsoever, but I'm a bow hunter, and I hunt to provide for my family and also to interact with nature. And I just think, people just need to get out and interact with nature and be a part of this solution when it comes to protecting nature. One thing that I always resort back to is voting with your dollar, being a conscious consumer, supporting companies that are, doing things ethically with sustainable practices. People or companies such as B corporations are a great place to start. If you are not familiar, there's a certification that a company receives once they're extremely transparent and they have sustainable practices. A company like Patagonia and Ben and Jerry's and North Face, et cetera, are B corporations. So this is just a great way for people. If you're like, well, yeah, I want to protect nature, but I just don't know where to start. Well, start with your own purchases and really think about what companies are doing things ethically and sustainably. That's, shout out to Grant, my brother. He's leading the change, in the plastic pollution department, as well as, how you can use business as a force for good. So, man, Hazen, this has been phenomenal, brother. I'm so grateful for you. Guys, let's give Hazen a round of applause virtually and some love. And Hazen, man, where's the best place for people to follow you online and to check you out?
Well, I always appreciate, and I stay pretty active on Instagram. So I have a couple Facebook pages, but stick to Instagram for right now. I just can't get myself onto the other things out there, but Instagram is really kind of proven, even though I've got a mess of followers, it's really kind of seems to be a community of love. So go out there and check that out. And then, the more I got a Patreon page, so you can get on there, and that's where we're actually developing a community of people where we're getting together a couple times a month via Zoom. I'm putting out videos about what you can do outside, even when you live in the city. How can you do things to interact with nature? And then if you're already out in nature, what should you be doing? How are you preparing your garden? What trees are you planting? How are you bringing the birds back? Let's bring those amphibians back. These are all kinds of the conversations on our Patreon page. So like homesteading and stuff like that. So check that out. I think it's Patreon, it's like patreon.com/Hazen Audel, and my Instagram page.
I love it, man. And just a shout out. So Hazen is our primitive survival expert for the Montana Masterminds. We got one coming up in July, and I'm so excited to hang and camp with you again, man. I just learned from you so much, especially when we're out hiking or in the wilderness, just walking on the trail, and you'll be like, oh, here's a morel mushroom, and it's blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you just learn so much just being in Hazen's presence. So definitely recommend following him online. Check out his Patreon. If you can do an adventure in person with him, it's highly worth it. I gotta say, he's one of a kind. So thank you, brother. I appreciate you, and I just want to thank everybody. Like, this has been such an amazing summit. I really am so grateful